Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Please welcome a man whose tiny children have been texting him somehow. It's Richard Herring. Thank you very much. You're much better than last week's audience. That's actually the first time this series I've been able to say that, and it makes sense just because of the order we've been putting them out in. This is the first one's going to follow on from the last one. So, you know, if you were here last week, then you've got something to compare it to. Welcome to Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre Podcast. But I was having my ears cleaned the other week, and the lady with the ear vacuum said she called it Rahalastaper. I think so, only I couldn't really hear what she was saying. There was a weird vacuum. It's kind of nice. Might get one of those myself and just vacuum my own ears. Maybe could charge people 40 quid to come round. Will you pay 40 quid time for you? 30? 35, brilliant. Once I've got the sucker. Yeah, look, my kids have been texting me. They don't have phones, so that was impressive. But I got it. This is a text I got the other day. Hi, Dad. I'm currently using a temporary phone as mine's broken. Can you please message me on my temporary number? +44 blah blah blah. I mean, I was sort of surprised, mainly because I had no idea they had phones in the first place. But of course they broke their fucking phone. They're 5 and 8. So only an idiot would give them expensive technical equipment like that. But nonetheless, they'd somehow managed to get hold of a phone anyway, which shows some grifting ability for those youngsters. Though then they'd broken it. I could have told them that would happen. I was furious, but also pretty impressed that either of them could remember my number that I'd never told them, and B, compose a complex message without any spelling mistakes. Though there was a missing apostrophe, so I realised it probably was them. Because you can do the rest with predictive text, can't you? So yeah, they're not as clever as they thought. Given both kids were at school at the time, I didn't think there was much point in messaging them. I'd wait till they got home and then give them a valuable lesson in taking care of expensive things, apostrophes, and why it's dangerous for someone under 10 to have a phone. There are all kinds of shady characters out there who could take advantage of someone as guileless and gullible as an 8-year-old. It's lucky that they have me to protect them from that, and I'm clever. Weirdly, the text, I don't know why they do this. It was a con man trying to get me to... But the text came from a different number than they were saying the temporary phone was. So it was like they'd got a temporary phone, but they'd borrowed someone else's phone to text me. I tried to text back to the phone that sent the text, and it didn't let me send the reply. So, you know, stupid fuckers, aren't they? Which kid is it? I wanted to just go, which one? Can you tell me which kid this is? I've got 2 kids, it's weird that you haven't bothered to put your name on the bottom of it. Anyway, that's the kind of exciting thing that happens in my life now. Right, look, let's crack on, because we have a fantastic pair. Look, there's 2 chairs there. That's exciting. Who could it be? Well, you'll know immediately who they are when I tell you. One of them is best known for playing Cloth Bag in Sarah and Duck. And the other one, of course, is Viking 4 in Robbie the Reindeer, Legend of the Lost Tribe. It's not the one I usually... I'm trying to get the cast of Robbie the Reindeer, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, back together, so like Justin Lee Collins would. One day there's going to be all of them. This guy won't be here because he's in Legend of the Lost Tribe. Will you please welcome, might be in the other one as well, will you please welcome Andy Nyman and Jeremy Dyson, ladies and gentlemen. Cloth Bag. Cloth Bag. Wow, that was a gift. That was a gift from that Cloth Bag, and a few other characters as well in Sarah and Duck.
Yeah, I don't want to boast.
Yeah. How'd you get into character of being a Cloth Bag?
I've done more research for that role than any other role I've ever played. Choose a voice, do it. That was it.
Sarah and Duck was a good show.
People really loved it.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. And the woman who animated it, you won't know this unless you've got little kids. It's a very cute show. But the woman who animated it, who wrote it, is called Sarah and looks exactly like Sarah from Sarah and Duck.
Wow. Does she have a duck?
She doesn't. No.
The duck might do all the writing. Did you might have a duck?
Yes. Yeah. But it's very sweet.
Oh, that's nice. And Robbie the Reindeer, were you in more than one of the Robbie Reindeers?
No, I just did the first one. I remember it very well.
All right.
Because it was written by Kevin Cecil and Andy Riley.
That's right.
And I think it was the first time I met them. And
right.
Andy had his trademark hat on.
Yes.
His large hat. And so I can picture being in that heated studio.
Why did they? Why were you disappointed not to get Viking 1, 2, or 3? First of all, Viking
I think
4.
I was given Viking 4 because he just made noises, so I wasn't trusted with dialogue.
No, I mean you haven't done a lot of acting. You've done a bit of acting. You've done a bit of appearing.
I think acting dignifies it. I have stood in front of a camera, with a costume on. Yes,
I mean the nice thing about you is you're both writers and you write together fantastically well and separately fantastically well. You're much more of a show-off.
Yes.
You're an actor who also writes. I think might be fair to say.
I think that's very fair to say.
Whereas you're a writer first and foremost. And
completely and foremost, I would say.
Yeah, but it was with the League of Gentlemen. We'll get this out quickly out of the way. But was there ever a feeling that you're creating these characters and creating these scripts? Was there ever any feeling you wanted to do anything in it apart from the tiny little bits?
I think my mum put it best because I was in the very first show, the very first stage show we put on.
Right.
I was on stage with them, and my mum put it best afterwards. She said, "I think you could say you're a very talented amateur." And it was my good fortune to be paired with 3 Peter Sellers.
Yes.
So it wasn't really sustainable, kind of as an onstage dynamic.
It's unlucky, I think, rather than fortunate that they are, so fantastic that anyone standing there would think, maybe I'm not necessary here.
There wasn't not much thought was required. And it was fine, because I never thought of myself as an actor, nor was it my aspiration to be an actor. I was always... a writer and interested in being behind the camera rather than in front of it.
Sure.
So.
And when they're on tour, when they did their big tour, do you go along to all of them? Some of them? None of them?
Some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't do all of them, but and particularly the last one when we did when we got back together a few years ago, that was just joyful. That was after sort of 16, 17 years or whatever it was. To be hanging out together and in that environment was just brilliant.
Yeah.
So
no, it's as you know, it's a terrific show. It's an amazing thing to be involved with, and you were played by Michael Sheen in the film.
Yes, I was. Yes, which was also incredible. Yeah, and very, very strange given the career that Michael's got on to have. But yeah, it was weird on the day though. It was weird because I can remember sitting and having lunch with him and thinking, are you trying to copy me now? Are you trying to internalise me and reproduce my tics? I wasn't looking forward to that.
And do you think he did?
No, I think he was very generous.
He thought no one would believe a grotesque character like this. I'll play him as Michael Sheen. Look, I really want to talk to you about the stuff you've done together. You've both done fantastic stuff apart. We might get onto a bit more of that. It's kind of interesting. You guys have known each other for a very long time. I thought you maybe, come together professionally, and you obviously wrote A Ghost Story together was maybe the first thing you wrote together.
Yeah.
But you knew each other for
So we met when we were 15.
Right.
1981, High Jewish summer camp in Somerset somewhere. Yeah. And we just happened to be in the same dorm of sort of 6 people. And
I think one of them, the others, is here tonight. Eddie, are you out there?
Wow.
Eddie Levinson was also there. Yeah.
Where in Somerset was it, Eddie? Because they don't know. Wellington School. Oh, Wellington,
my God, how do you remember that? Amazing, yeah. So Eddie was there, and all my family are from... I was brought up in Leicester, but all my family, parents, grandparents, extended family were all from Leeds. So I felt I'd spent a lot of my time there, and my bar mitzvah do was in Leeds. Right. And so... I felt a real affinity to the Leeds lads, but I'd taken up with me. I used to collect Ragmags.
Okay,
so
so that's a student.
They were
student comedy magazines for
just,
younger viewers and listeners.
Yeah, not porn. Yeah,
it does sound.
I take my porn mags. I didn't know it was going to be there. Guys, watch me do this. Don't turn the pages. I need that one. So it was there you are. So it's just filthy jokes that universities used to put in these little booklets.
Rugby songs. Do you remember
rugby songs and things? Yeah. And they'd sell them in the town centre to sort of raise money for Rag Week.
Couldn't do that now.
The world's gone mad, isn't it, Richard? Yeah. So I had like 15 or so of these books and thought, well, there'll be a laugh. And so in our little room, that was the first thing, was reading these dirty jokes to each other. But we also, the big thing for us was we cottoned on very quickly, and I can't remember how it was that we both were obsessed with horror.
I guess we've just been talking about, it just came up because it was the dawn of the video age. This was 1981. Right. So, VHSs were just coming out, video nasties. So we very quickly got onto that.
Yeah.
And we both we both were fans of Starburst magazine.
Starburst magazine and Fangoria, if you were feeling rich, that you'd managed to get a copy of. So there was that. And so it was sort of comedy, horror, and magic. Because I'd always had a passing interest in magic, and Jeremy was quite accomplished and used to go and do from a very early age sort of kids parties and stuff.
I used to go out every weekend doing kids parties from being like 12 onwards.
Yeah, I mean, so like even just that first meeting, the sort of essence of
nothing's changed.
Well, the essence of everything you were going to do together was there: comedy, magic, and horror.
Yeah, it's all, and our conversations now, whilst have shifted a little.
Our vocabulary is slightly enlarged.
Yeah, but it's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
Truly, swimming in the same water.
And so did you stay in touch from that day on?
Absolutely.
Or was it,
we were. The joke that we both make is that our parents had sent us to find brides. And we came back with each other. And it was one of those very intense friendships for me where almost from as soon as I got back, I was on the phone to you. Because you remember in those
days... Can you wait
days,
till 6 o'clock? It's costing a fortune.
You'd sit on the phone. In the days before the internet, that's what you do. We'd be on the phone to each other for 2 hours. And then we'd go and stay with each other. We got to the age where we could be allowed to get on a National Express coach on our own. And I would go down to Leicester and he would come up to me.
And were you writing stuff together then?
No. I mean, I was and remain in awe of Jeremy and his brilliance as a writer. And then so it was really thrilling to sort of watch his career develop.
And likewise, because his thing was acting.
Yeah.
He was acting then. He was in Leicester Little Theatre when, from as long as I knew him.
I don't want to boast.
And so, his first TV appearance was in The Woman in Black, the brilliant ITV Woman in Black. And I can still remember, the absolute thrill of your scene coming on. And so we were sort of, it didn't occur to us to work together. We were on our separate tracks. You were, he was at drama school. I went to art college and then went on to university, and we were kind of on separate rails, but admiring each other and very proud of each other.
Yeah. It's really, it's very interesting always to think how, obviously throughout life with love and work, and you meet someone and these special relationships are formed, but it is kind of, it feels a little bit magic, doesn't it? The coincidence of you
incredible.
Being in the same dorm and everything.
Yeah.
It's not quite Galton and Simpson with, what do they have, polio? TB was it? Not quite that bad.
There was only a sickness of the mind. Not of the body.
And so then with the ghost story came along, and that was sort of sparked by you, was it?
Yes. So We'd sort of talked about, wouldn't it be fun to do something together at some point? And in the way you do with mates, it's always like, that'd be great. We should do that. But, Jeremy lives up north and he's married with his family, and I live in West London, married with my family. And, as freelancers, you're just paying the bills a lot of the time and trying to keep things together. So the idea of actually somehow magically taking this chunk of time out to create something that chances are will never get seen is just, it's not a reality. But I hadn't done a play for 10 years. I'd just been, I'd sort of taken the decision to stop doing theatre and to just focus on doing films. And I'd been back and forward to LA a lot and was doing that. And then I came back after 10 years and did a play, and it was very popular. And it was also a real crowd pleaser. And the director was a guy called Sean Holmes. Yeah. And Sean said to me, we'd gotten very well, and he said, look, let's work together again. Whatever you want to do, I'll just do it. What play do you want to do? Well, I'd had this sort of thought slightly prior to that, where I'd been to see the Vagina Monologues. I may have actually... Oh, no, it was at the Arts. I thought it was here. It was at the Arts. And I didn't really enjoy the play.
It wasn't what you were hoping, was it?
No. So I was watching this thing and thought... So I was quite sort of aside from it, watching it. And I thought, this thing is packed. It is on in like 20 different countries. And it is 3 women sitting on 3 stools reading.
Yeah.
Someone's making a lot of money out of this as a commercial venture.
Sure.
That was thought one. About a week later, I was walking past The Woman in Black, which it's gone now. How weird is that? But that was, if you never saw it, I wish you had. And if you did see it, you'll know what a truly brilliant, frightening, remarkable production and play it was. Absolutely brilliant. But it had been on at that point for like 20 years. And I just thought it's mental that there's never been another horror play in that amount of time. It's like, let's not do another musical because Phantom of the Opera's on. I mean, it was mad. And I just had this lightning bolt moment. And I almost phoned, I think I phoned Jeremy immediately and said, I had an idea. You know, we keep talking about why don't we do a play together? How about if we do the Vagina Monologues with ghost stories? 3 men sitting on 3 stools telling ghost stories, and we'll make it as scary as a horror film. Well, of course, it sort of it morphed out of that, but I think that really...
Yeah, that was definitely... And I was immediately caught, because I actually, the thing I thought of was Dave Allen sitting on a stool telling ghosts, because remember how brilliant his ghost stories were?
Yeah.
And that was the thing that hooked me. And I was on I was a bit lost at that point. We'd stopped doing the League, and I'd done Funland, and then I wasn't quite in the wilderness, but I'd kind of sort of forgotten a bit who I was. Yeah. And the call came just at the right time, because it was like, that's going to be fun. It'll be a delight to work with him, I imagine. And it was,
better than you imagine.
What a terrific idea. And so that was enough to hook me in. And so we had about a year of very quite softly batting ideas back and forth, and just sending each other like favourite ghost stories, and knew so many bits of things he'd written. And so we were just planting seeds, really.
Yeah.
And then
when Sean said to me, whatever play you want to do next, I'll do that. And I said, well, it's not a written play, but me and Jeremy Dyson have had this idea, which is the Vagina Monologues with ghost stories. And he instantly went, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Can I read it? And we're like, well... we haven't written it. Anyway, about a month later, he became artistic director at the Lyric, Hammersmith. And I think his first or second phone call was to me saying, what's happening with that play? Will you come and see me? So I think 2 days later, we went in to see him, and we'd formulated an idea.
Well, we kind of had a manifesto.
Yes.
Which was, although we didn't have the story, we definitely had a strong sense of what we wanted the experience to be, because we wanted it to be a thing that burst its banks. Yeah. So it wasn't just on the stage, it was like an experience, because there's so much that we both love. We love, obviously, the world of magic. We love the world of theme parks.
Fairgrounds. Circus.
Another big thing for me is I'd seen a fake seance that him and Richard Wiseman had staged back in the late 90s that had always stayed with me. And I thought it was such an intense, brilliant experience. And I had that in my head as well. So we were able to go in and kind of throw this pitch together of what the thing would be like, even though we didn't know what the story was.
And it was also really commercially minded as well. This manifesto, was... We sort of wrote this thing saying it would be modern. It had to be contemporary, because the Woman in Black is there and it's brilliant. So if you did anything that was like Dickensy, it would only be just not as good as. It had to be as scary as a modern horror film. It had to have a small cast, so that would keep it cheaper, and give you. And we wanted it to be 90 minutes, no interval, like a horror film. So you just went straight through. And that's what we went and told him. And he said, brilliant, we'll open it a year. Looked in his diary, we'll open it a year today. We'll do a co-production. We'll find another theatre who'll do it with us. which means you need to give us your first draft in like October the 1st or whatever it was. And of course, you'd then just think, oh, fuck.
I think we did try and wriggle out of it,
We
didn't
did.
we?
Yeah.
Because then we realised, well, that only gives us about 8 months to actually do the work, which is ludicrous, actually, now in retrospect. But in that time, I was shooting a thing for Channel 4, you were doing something else, and we knew we only had, there was like this 2-week window where we could do our sort of R&D on it, and then we'd have an intense 5 months to write it or something. And then this thing that I was shooting got moved, and I phoned Jez and said, look, you know that 2 weeks R&D, I think I can only do like a week.
Right.
And I said, good, because I'd had something move as well.
Yeah.
So,
So that was it. We got together on this week, and you know, the gods smiled on us.
30
basically.
years we turned on the tap and 30 years came out of it.
Yeah.
Basically, it was backed up there, ready and waiting, which
Right.
doesn't happen very often. But when it does happen like that, it's just a pure joy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a very, I've heard you say that, and that's a very. It's happened to me a couple of times where just something comes out of you, more or less ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's such a rare thing as a writer.
Oh, God,
it's those nights when you can't.
Yeah.
You've got an idea and you can't sleep because you're so excited about the
Yeah.
thing. Just thinking, and it's all formulating in your head. I wish that happened more often.
I know, but you just got to be grateful for
Yeah.
if you get it once, that's something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. As a sidebar, weirdly, I shared the arts theatre with the Vagina Monologues. I was doing Christ on a Bike for a couple of weeks after them, and it was exactly the same for me. And everyone in the bar after, they'd pack out, and then 50 people would come and see me. And every night in the bar, someone would go, you should do a male version of the Vagina Monologues. I said, yeah. So it's such an obvious idea.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of thought, why hasn't anybody done it? So then I did. That was the influence for doing Talking Cock, which was probably my most successful solo show. Which again, that went all around the world as well. So that production of the Vagina Monologues
Inspired.
which again I didn't particularly like.
Yeah.
Inspired two things that went on to be to do okay, which is quite interesting. And I saw the production at the Lyric in Hammersmith as well. So it was an extraordinary thing because it is. I mean, it's crazy to say, but it was sort of populist theatre in that you went to it, got scared, you had fun, it was enjoyable. And it's done incredibly. I mean, it's still going, right? You're still
It's on, pops up all over the world. It's very exciting. But that was also a really big thing for us because I'm obsessed with theatre. I absolutely love it. As a family, that has always been our biggest expense almost. But a lot of the time, theatre is too long, too boring, too pretentious, too expensive. Not including this evening, obviously. So that was a really big thing for us, was that, and I think that a lot of that I'd learnt in creating the sort of Derren Brown stage shows was that I developed an appetite to really give an audience their money's worth, because I really believe that anybody who comes to see a play that you've written or when the film was at the Pictures, you just want to give them so much that they feel that the 25, 45, 60 quid, whatever it is, that they go away and think, oh, that was worth it. I really enjoyed that.
And weirdly, I completely understood it when Andy started talking about that, and he had this word, over-deliver, you got to over-deliver. And I completely got it because we had the same thing right from the dawn of the league, even when we were putting the shows on at the Canal Cafe. It was this thing of, if you're expecting people to pay 5 or 10 quid or whatever it was back then, you've got to give them something for it.
Sure.
And so we were quite diligent. We would drill the shows and get the cues tight and try and make it value for money. So I completely understood that, and I thought it was a great thing to go out there with that as your goal.
And you stayed in control of the idea, right? So with the film, you had the chance to sell it to someone else who would have taken it away and done their own thing with them. Probably
we did, yeah. I mean,
Norman won as well.
Yeah, and that was a lot. Again, that was a really big learning curve in lots of different ways. We were offered a big Hollywood studio when the play was on. I mean, we were lambs to the slaughter. We went into this meeting, hello, and these guys talk the talk, and then we walked out, and we'd known we don't want to make a film yet, and then they made this big old offer. They hadn't even seen the play,
Right.
but then you're embroiled in this. It's not like you can just say no. There's a million things hoops you have to go through, and things you need your lawyers to explore and all that. It went on forever, schleps on forever, and. But what came out of it, and there was once we'd said no to that after 7 months or whatever, and then there was another a wonderful independent producer who wanted to do it, and it really forced our hands into thinking, well, what do we want to do with it? And
there was brilliant. There was a night in Toronto where, because Andy's brilliant he's so entrepreneurial in a way that I'm not, and we were in Toronto. The show was going on there, and we stood in the foyer, and it was when that offer was live, and you said to me, I don't want them to do it. We should be doing it. If it gets fucked up, we should be the ones to fuck it up.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, he's right. That was how. And so once we'd made that decision, we sort of pursued it. It's like giving yourself permission to do that.
Yeah, and they feel, when you sort of say them retrospectively, they feel so obvious. But in the moment, they don't, because, one of the things we do talk about a lot is religion and our backgrounds and what we think. And neither of us, I was about to say neither of us are religious, and then I sort of stopped myself because I think my journey on it is different. But we talk about what right and wrong and that stuff. And it's really interesting when you're faced with those decisions, because you realise so much of it is about worshipping false gods. All these opportunities, the money, all this stuff, and all of it just draws you away from the purest thing, which is to, we'd rather not do it than do it and have the joy of doing it together. And that is not a luxurious choice because we're both multi-millionaires. It's not. Quite the opposite. It's very, 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 very hard because, if you turn those things down, then it means you've got to earn some money somewhere else.
Sure.
But ultimately it was the right decision for us. And
yeah.
And equally, if you have the passion and the project, it's got a better chance of being successful, and that might be money or it might be just acclaim, so it's worth doing as well.
Yeah,
no, that's exactly true of the Legal Gentlemen. I saw those early Legal Gentlemen shows, and it was low economy, but sellotape on faces, but brilliantly put. Just like you were blown away by the stagecraft as much as the comedy. Magic and comedy, and you've obviously both got a background in magic, but they're sort of similar things in that they both involve misdirection and surprise. That's sort of the two things that...
And horror.
Yeah.
They're all so akin.
Yeah.
And they're both visceral, they're experiential, deeply experiential. If you think, what the thrill of getting a laugh is, there's something transformative about it. And the same, I think, with magic, giving people a genuine surprise, a wow moment. It's very similar. It's an embodied thing. You feel it.
And it's also interesting again because it's sort of like magic has especially kids doing magic has a sort of certain feeling to it. It's great to have taken you're interested in magic as a kid and turned it into something which is so high tech, both with Darren and with this show and with this book. We'll talk about, it's so high tech and it's so involved and so intricate, and it's sort of nerdy to start with. All these things are nerdy to start with, aren't they? But then they grow.
They're still nerdy.
They're still not nerdy, but the things you've created are so impressive and so rich. The book. And I guess of the book and if I remember Ghost Story rightly as well, there is there's a seam of Jewishness running through and through the Warlock Effect, which is this novel that you've written together. Now, before we get on to the novel, and we were brief to talk about this backstage, but the idea of writing a novel together as two people, for some reason, feels to be like impossibly difficult? I've listened to the audiobook and I can't tell who's written. It doesn't change in style. Do you do like one word? He does like one
syllable
upon a time.
One syllable at a time.
We do it like consequences. We fold down a page.
Yeah, fold it down, see what you got.
Yeah.
Was it a difficult? I mean, it shouldn't be different than writing a screenplay, but it does feel, because there has to be a voice with a novel. There has to be a narrator's voice at least, or whatever. Was it difficult to do this together? How does that process work?
It wasn't for us because we've been working together through Ghost Stories through its various iterations on stage and then on film, and which was a long time, and the film went through many drafts, and then we'd written a draft of another play as well in between, and another film. I think by the time a draft, by the time we'd come to do Ghost Stories. So I mean, Warlock Effect. So we were well versed at working together, and we had a process that worked, and we just kind of built on that. We didn't give it too much thought, really.
No, I mean, that has been a bit of a... It's a bit of a thing, it always reminds me of sort of parenting where, when you first have your kids and everyone's like, wait till they're teething, and then it's, wait till they're 2. And then, everyone always wants to chip in with how hard it's going to be.
Yeah.
And we just never, right the way through, we've always just presumed, it'll be fine. And within that, we'll have difficult conversations about, on the film, I remember a really big conversation about who calls cut if there are 2 directors.
Yeah.
Things that seem so silly. But,
So we had to arm wrestle.
Yeah. But so you try and have those conversations, which at times is awkward and difficult. But all that really helps. So then when it comes to writing, the novel, it was just sort of the same process, which is we talk for hours and hours and hours and plot and then talk about life and whatever we want to talk about, and then something will pop up that you think, oh God, what would be brilliant is if that goes there. And then after months you end up with a sort of mushy shape that you then go, okay, well, you do all of that bit, I'll do that bit, and then let's swap over and you tell me what you think of that, I'll tell you what I think of this, and make notes, and then
well, it's so rich again. I think that you can tell from that experience, because it's we can't talk about it too much because there's it's a book full of surprises. It's basically it's set in the 1950s, which is an interesting choice. And I guess if you were doing it as a film first, that was an expensive choice to make.
Well, that's what happened. Is it started as a film script, and we started. We plotted out the first act, and then we did soft pitch it to a producer, and that was the first thing he said was, "This is going to be very expensive."
Because the opening, because it feels like it's going to be one thing, and then it's sort of about identity, isn't it? And
totally.
So a guy who's come is an immigrant to the country, is Jewish and has escaped terrible things and has to change it. Well, changes his name to become a magician.
Yeah, and there was a lot of, as with Ghost Stories, there was a lot of real stuff in there. We do like to dig into our own stuff. With this, it was a lot of our family stuff, and you're always looking for that sort of filament of truth to build the story around. So he comes over on the kinder transport as a kid. He uses magic as a defense. He's literally on his own, and magic's all he's got to defend himself with. And then he builds this career, and that was based. There were a lot of Jewish magicians in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And there was at least one of them who had a not dissimilar path to that.
Okay.
That whole generation who either had fought in the war, who were born into the war, profoundly affected them.
Because it starts off, what I love about it, you think it's going to be one thing and it turns into something different.
Yeah.
Several times. But it starts off, you're thinking, this is going to be interesting. It's a group of people who work together on magic shows, and then they do this big stunt, which you think, this is going to be loads of fun, and it's fun. And they have to locate him in London, and when he's blindfolded, or he has to locate his wife or whatever. in London somewhere with no clues, and you think this is going to be capers, it's going to be fun, and then it sort of turns quite dark and turns into a different...
Yeah.
I'll say it's about espionage. I don't want to give anything away, but it becomes about espionage.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say he gets recruited as a spy by the British Secret Service. Yeah.
And so it turns into a different thing again, and and there are some proper shocks, but then there's also this sort of fun of magic being explained a little bit, tricks being explained as it goes through.
And there are real magic tricks in the book that you can learn as well.
Well, that's one of the things that's we find it delicious, and hope that clearly people have done, is that within the magic world, there's a really there's so many sort of... It is literally, there's a whole world, a sub-world of the conjuring arts. So magicians will go and create magic tricks and then go around the world and teach them, lecture like this. If this was a magic convention, the magician stands here and he performs his tricks, and then he goes into great detail about how they're performed, and then you would buy either the mechanism, the gimmick afterwards, or a booklet of tricks. And back in the 50s, starting a bit earlier actually, but it's changed a bit now because it's so monetized as a hobby, and the world has changed so much. But back then, when you were buying a booklet of a magician's tricks, you really were buying their cabaret act. You were buying what they weren't pipe dreams. They were going out, they were selling you what their living is. So within the book, The Warlock Effect, our novel, there is a book, The Warlock Effect, which is Louis' manual to magicians of his theories and how he performs tricks. And so within that, you are taught 3 or 4 pretty good tricks. And I say that as someone who creates magic and loves magic. But also there's a real insight into the thinking of the magician and how you take something small and turn a really small thing into a big thing through just shifting the words that you use, and how that impacts on an audience. So it's a really delicious world that I think giving the general public an insight into has been exciting.
I know you're allowed to do this because you're both members of the Magic Circle.
I am a recent member.
I saw this, yes. So you've been inducted into the Magic Circle.
I was inducted, which Andy kept as a secret from me. He had been engineering things behind the scenes, and we did an event about 3 weeks ago at the Magic Circle, and then they surprised me with my membership. I was allowed to forego doing my performance, my exam.
You still had to slaughter the chicken. So that was...
yeah. And is it everything you dreamt it would be in that Magic Circle?
I'm not ashamed to say I wept on stage.
You did. Yes. It was lovely because it is a big thing. It's a really exciting... So the giving away of secrets is a really interesting thing, because what you're not allowed to do, if I stood up now and just gave away a trick, explained a trick, that wouldn't be okay. Equally, if it was on Saturday Night Takeaway, you just give it away. It's very different if people commit to buying a book. Or if you go, so you can go out to Smith's and buy Smith's like it exists. You can go and buy a book on magic at any bookshop on how to do tricks. That's fine, because you're investing something of yourself, and that's also true of the book. And we were very cautious about what we revealed or not revealed. A couple of the tricks that we've put twists on are public domain. Right. One of them. The first trick that you are taught is the oldest published magic trick in the world. It was one of the very first card tricks ever published. And it's a phenomenal piece of very simple misdirection that, 5 minutes after reading it, you would be able to perform it. Yeah. And it's so as long as it's done, it's also about the spirit in which it's done. And the book is sort of our love letter to magic.
Sure, no, it definitely comes across.
And I think the other thing is that I'm increasingly fascinated by is that magic now is actually opening up as a whole new area of science. There's a guy called Gustav Kuhn, who's a British, I think he's a psychiatrist or a neuroscientist, who's got a university department where he uses magic and magic techniques as a window onto the mechanisms of perception and cognition,
Right.
because it's like a map. There's hundreds of years of magic where they've mapped all the little flaws in human perception, and you can sort of reverse engineer from it how the brain works and how it doesn't work, just by looking at magic tricks. And even deeper than that, the times that we live in where manipulation of truth seems to have become everything, because of what's happened online. It couldn't be more current, because that's so much of magic. That's how it works. It uses language, as Andy's already touched on. Just careful changes of individual words can create an impression that you've seen something that you haven't seen. And so we were quite excited about the idea of building a story around all of that, and because it seems very current. And then so there's great misdirection of setting it in the 1950s, because it doesn't look or feel like now.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And and there's moments. It's a beautifully written thing. It's a brilliant written thing, and it grabs you by the guts. Really, there's bits where you can't believe what's happening, and maybe you're right not to believe what's happening because it's a magic book. But there's proper shocks in it, I would say, as well. So I really recommend it. I've been reading a lot of books, 'cause I do a book club version of this podcast now, and it's a terrific, and original novel, and it's presumably going to now get into being filmed, I would imagine. Is it?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, we were very excited. We had a lot of interest in it, and we actually had that rare thing of a bidding war.
Really great.
Yeah, which was terribly exciting. And so we partnered with Hartswood Films, which we couldn't be more excited about. They were just so enthusiastic about it, and so yeah, we're about to start work on writing the first episode. Yeah,
right. And will there be more books?
Yes,
there is.
Yeah, there will.
Because it does feel. I mean, the team feels like and it feels like a really. I mean, is that based on a real thing or just that?
It's kind of an amalgam of stuff.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
They're called the Brains Trust, the people who create these illusions and methods with Louis. And yeah, I mean, look, I've been in a couple of Brains Trusts throughout my career where you're creating effects and moments and tricks for people. So yeah, it's it's fiction, but equally there's truth within it.
I think it makes you feel as you're reading. I kind of a couple of times had to just Google something to make sure. I knew it wasn't true, but I was thinking, but is this true? Because it feels very, very. The period detail's fantastic.
Well, I mean, there are things that we without giving any spoilers away. There's a certain theatrical event that features that's completely real.
100%.
Right.
The lineup of that event is that's what it was in 1953. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So it does, but it has that authentic feel. I'm delighted. That's what this is terrific. You're gonna do more with it. And you carry on doing your separate projects as well.
Oh yes.
I mean, the most excitingly, Andy, maybe for this audience, is your appearance. I mean, there's quite a few bits actually. The Last Jedi. You're in The Last Jedi.
Oh God. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
It is very exciting. Yeah. I mean,
I didn't spot you, but
yeah. I'd done another film with the director called The Brothers Bloom, and I was in a show in town, and he came to see me and said, "Oh, I want you in the movie." I was like, "Well, that's really easy. Just make an offer and I'll be in it. It's not like I'm going, no. Anyway, so yes, I'm in it for a blink.
Yeah. Was that exciting? Were you a big Star Wars guy?
He's not a Star Wars fan.
No.
Wasted on him.
No, I wasn't. But what was a joy was I'd done a film with Frank Oz, a thing called Death at a Funeral. And Frank and I have remained very, very dear friends. And I knew that he was coming over to do Yoda and that we'd be on set at the same time. Okay. So that was a treat. But look, I'm not being snooty about it. Of course, it's a lovely credit, but it's not like, it was very brief.
And I loved you in Dead Set as well, which I'd actually forgotten about. And I thought, oh, yes, of course you were.
Thank you.
But that was sort of the start of Black Mirror almost.
I mean, that was Charlie's first drama. Yeah. And that was an amazing thing because I'd been I hadn't done a telly for 10 years. That was in that period where I'd sort of just been doing films. And And then this script came through, and they said it's Charlie Brooker, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, I just love his stuff. And what was amazing was, because I'd always suspected with Charlie in all the stuff I've read, and that his sort of acerbic bile came from a place of disappointment that, you know, oh, I really, really love it, I wish it was great, and it's not, it's rubbish. And the fact that he had written something as if, like, oh, I'll have a go, I'll write something, and it was phenomenal. I mean, his writing, as we now all know, is just, and his imagination, phenomenal. So that was just the most incredible gift of a show. I loved it.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. Right, let me ask you some emergency questions. If you, like a caterpillar, were to be put in a cocoon and melt, that's what happens to a caterpillar,
Yep.
but you can emerge from the cocoon as anything you would like to be, the chrysalis. What would you like to emerge from the chrysalis as?
Have you got an answer first?
I would like to be a singer.
Really?
Yes, a singer in a band.
Are you not? Can you not sing at the moment?
I haven't sung since my bar mitzvah.
Okay.
But I always wanted to be. I mean, I did play in bands, but I was a keyboard player,
Right.
and I still play in bands. But I would like to be a charismatic frontman.
Would you?
Yeah, if I could choose.
Andy, if you got
That's part. I mean, the only other thing that I ever really wanted to do was not a million miles off that. I wanted to be a singing impressionist. Absolutely,
like
like
the
Joe
Barron Knights?
Longthorne or the Barron Knights. I loved the Barron Knights. So I loved all of those. So I loved Yarwood. Absolutely loved him all.
Yeah.
Can I say the thing my dad used to say every week on Yarwood was he did a really good Frank Sinatra, and then he would go for the last verse, he would go, and this is me, and he'd sing it as Yarwood. And my dad would every week say, but he sings so well as Sinatra, why does he go
revert
to being him and he can't sing? Anyway, sorry.
No, so that'd be it. That's what I always loved. Yeah.
Yeah, good, all right. If all the world's museum and art galleries got together and said, we love The Warlock Effect, it's such a brilliant book, we want you both to have one item from any art gallery or museum that you could take away and keep, is there anything you would like to possess? It could be anything, you know, it can be a magic thing, it can be a art thing.
I'll tell you what I covet.
Yeah.
Really, really covet. The hand buzzer, you know, the joke.
Yeah.
SS Adams, who were the company who made it, there's a display.
This isn't an art piece of art.
No,
Not to you, it might not be.
To
To me, it is. It is. That's what I would want.
Right.
There is the most amazing display that was in shops of the hand buzzer, and it's got like 30 hand buzzers on it and the hand drawn art on it. I'm art, and to me that is that would make me very
You
happy.
could probably buy that on
You
eBay.
can't. I've searched.
Have you?
Yeah.
Have you got anything, Jeremy?
I think I'd take Duchamp's urinal.
Oh, yes.
Because I saw it at is it in the Tate? It's somewhere. I've seen it.
Someone else chose this.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know if it was one of the other League of Gentlemen. It might have been.
But it was a thing I saw when I was quite young, and it was a bit mind blowing that you could make that. Because obviously it was hysterically funny.
Yeah.
And the idea that could be put in an art gallery is just such a good joke.
Just buy a urinal.
That's not the same.
No one else has said the hand buzzer display, though, have they?
No one has said that. This is especially for you, Andy, because this is especially for you.
Go on.
What would it take for you to fellate the actor Keith Allen? Is there any price you'd put on that?
If he owned the SS Adams hand buzzer display,
I've a good authority that he does. We won't delve into that any further,
thank you.
but I might do backstage. His name came up backstage. Let's just say, is there anything you'd want to?
I
fillet
have
to
no
keep it?
beef with him one way or the
No,
other.
but what would it take for you to fillet? If he came in and said he wants to suck my cock, would you be prepared to do that for a certain fee?
World peace.
And Keith Allen has that. And that's the terrible
He has that power.
He has that power and chooses not to use it. That's the kind of guy he is. He could stop war at any point. But like Satan, only in destroying finds his ease. He's like Milton's Satan.
It's strangely plausible.
It's just I've now sat down to have a think about that, and I can't stop thinking about it. All right, I've put my questions over to AI now. I've realised AI can ask questions. This one's the best one that the AI has come up with. What is the most ludicrous thing you've ever done in the name of love?
This is true.
Yeah.
I did a comic strip. There was a girl that I fancied who worked in a card shop in Leeds, and I did a comic. And I kept going in, and one week she noticed. She said, "You buy a lot of cards." So I did a comic strip of me going in to buy cards, and then dropped it off at the shop with my phone number.
And now you're married.
But she was sadly going out with somebody else.
Oh.
But embarrassingly,
it's all embarrassing so far, Jeremy. Don't worry.
many years later, very recently, she became friends in adult life with some close friends of mine.
Okay.
And we went along to a party at their house, and she was there.
And she had the comic strip
She
on
didn't
the
have
wall.
the comic strip on the wall, but it was. But I was strong about it because it's nothing to be ashamed of.
It isn't, but we've all got these stories. It's the hope. It's a beautiful story because it's the hope, and then you put something into it, and then you're crushed.
Well, I can't think of one like that, but I'll tell you what I'm going to say. August the 1st is mine and my wife Sophie's 30th anniversary,
Wow.
and she's here.
Wow.
Where are you? I made that up. I'm not married. No, she is. Yeah. So 33 years we've been together.
33?
Yep.
That's incredible. You don't look old enough to have been...
Well, I do with this bloody thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Very nice. Okay, good. Well, here's a bad question from AI. This one's slightly relevant to what we were talking about. Would you rather be forced to sit through an eternity of Big Brother episodes, or be stuck in a room with Richard Herring reciting an endless stream of bad jokes? I mean, that would be get out of character because there would be good jokes, but
Big Brother.
Big Brother. I mean, there's more variety in Big Brother. Even it was an endless stream of jokes. Even if you liked me,
But presumably we could pause you on the jokes and have a chat.
Endless. It was endless was the word.
And of bad jokes as well. I'm not even doing my good stuff.
Not
Doing my
A-list.
bad stuff. That's AI fucking having a crack at me just because I'm trying to make it do my job for me. Have you had any connection with Doctor Who at any point? Either of you? It feels
No.
like you should.
I
have done.
haven't.
I am a fan.
Yeah.
I am a fan. Yeah.
It feels like you know.
Stephen Moffat is Hartswood Films,
Right.
who is. Who
Oh,
will
yeah,
be
so
doing,
now you've got an
So now I
indirect
have
connection.
got
Yes,
a connection to it because they'll be doing Warlock.
I mean, you guys have been writing and/or Doctor. It could be Doctor Who. Fancy it? Don't like sci-fi, do you? You don't like sci-fi?
I don't.
He
really
would
like
be a
sci-fi.
great. He would be a great Doctor Who, don't you think?
Oh, that's very sweet, but I suspect that ship sailed. Yes.
And you've done a lot of stage. Was Ghost Story your sort of step back into stage, or have you done some stuff before?
No, I'd done a lot of stage and then I'd taken a break from it, as I say, for like 10 years. And but yeah, I've done loads. I love it. I love the theatre and I love doing plays. But it's got to be something you really want to do because it means you're out every night and it's a big commitment. So, yeah. So the last show I did was I played Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
So I did that for almost a year.
Did you?
Yeah, and that was pre-COVID. That was just about 6 months before COVID happened, and then I'm doing a show in town again next year.
How is it doing? I mean, I like acting. I get a bit bored even filming something, but like the idea of going out and doing something, especially if you're not allowed to change it every single night.
I absolutely adore it.
Really?
I adore it. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be the right material.
Yeah.
But I adore it. And I also just think, I cannot bear the moaning. I cannot bear it. People, 8 times a week. And just think, fucking hell, you're in town, you're in the West End, or you're... No, I love it. I just, it's the greatest honour to be able to do it. I've always felt that, not just sort of playing big parts and in the West End. I always feel that. I just feel like it's such... There are so many people who would just give anything to have one day doing that. So I just think, oh, no, I love it.
Is it? I went to see Operation Mincemeat. Have you seen that musical?
I have not. No.
It's it's brilliant, and it's a small cast, and they do a lot. And and they're doing 8 shows a week, and there are alternative people who take over every now and again. But I just think it must be. You have to be so fit even to do one performance of it.
Oh yeah.
So was that true of Fiddler on the Roof?
Was massive.
Yeah,
absolutely massive. I mean, I was on stage 3 hours basically, and it's massive emotionally, massive physically. Yeah, you've got to be on top of your game. You really have. Yeah.
I won't bother. Gonna just stop calling people in the theatre asking me to star in the West End. I'm not gonna do it. So what's coming up? Is there? I mean, that's pretty much enough, isn't it? Have you got other solo stuff that's coming up soon for either of you?
Yeah, I'm filming something at the moment, hence all this, which I can't say what it is, but that'll be in cinemas.
Is it the Santa Claus 5?
Yes. And then I'm in a series actually which my son is also in on Disney Plus, I think, called A Small Light, which is the thing about Anne Frank, which is honestly the most amazing series. And I think both of us were a bit surprised at how brilliant it is. Because when you shot it, it was fine, but they've done the most brilliant job. It's really fantastic. And then I'm in rehearsals at the moment for a thing that myself, Darren, and Andrew O'Connor are writing and directing called Unbelievable, which is a new take on a magic show. Mm-hmm. And that will be in the West End in September.
Wow, busy. You got anything on, Jeremy?
Yeah, I am working with French comic book artist Joanne Sfar. We're doing a series together that we've been developing for the past couple of years, and that is now moving into its next phase. So,
great.
I'm just...
I mean, so you've written a lot of books as well, solo, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
So it's...
Yeah, and then we've got the next Warlock to do as well. We've got to get going on that, so...
And the pilot.
And the pilot for the
of
series,
this to write.
Yeah.
Well,
and we have an episode of Good Omens that we wrote.
Oh, yeah, we did that, yeah. That's out soon, isn't it?
It is out soon, yeah. What's it called? Can you remember what we called it?
Nazi Zombie Flesh Eaters.
Truly, that's not a joke.
We put that title on as a joke, and then they kept it.
Yeah.
Well, look, I can't believe you managed to get all this stuff done. That's pretty impressive.
But most importantly, we came here.
You did. Well, it's lovely to have you. And as I said backstage, I can't believe I haven't had either of you on before, let alone both of you. But no, it's really absolute honour to talk to you and a pleasure to talk to you. Do check out The Warlock Effect. Honestly, you will not regret it. It's one of the... It's my novel of the year, I have to say.
Oh, come on.
That's very good.
Thank you.
I don't like novels generally, though. So it's
doesn't matter. That'll be on the paperback. You've said it now.
I have said no. It's generally brilliant, and I think it'll be a fantastic filmed thing as well. So congratulations! Give it up for the incredible Jeremy Dyson, Andy Nyman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have been listening to RHLSTP with me, Rich Terring, and my guests, Andy Nyman and Jeremy Dyson. The music is by Scant Regard. As you know by now, I'm indebted to my producer Ben Walker that Chris Evans, not that one, or that one, or that one, is also involved in this somehow. I'm not sure. It seems a bit shady to me. And thank you to everyone at the Leicester Square Theatre. They are very nice. This is a Sky Potato, Fuzz, and GoFasterStripe.com production.